It's funny how we've all just kind of accepted this modern superpower without really batting an eye.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Like you're sitting on your couch, you tap a piece of glass a few times, and then 2 days later, a physical object just materializes on your porch.
Right, like magic.
Exactly. We treat it almost like a law of physics now. We just see the buy now button and then the cardboard box.
Yeah. But it's a brilliant illusion, really. I mean, we've designed this entire global commerce system that deliberately hides the friction.
Hides the friction of making and moving things, right?
Exactly. It hides all of that from the end consumer.
But between that button and that box is just this massive, totally invisible choreography. And that is actually our mission for this deep dive today. We are unpacking the critical pivot point where inbound order management collides with outbound execution.
Which is a huge topic.
It is huge. We're pulling a ton of insights today from the APS Certified in Logistics, Transportation, and Distribution, the CLTD learning system. Specifically, we're focusing on Module 3, Section B, which is all about enabling outbound and inbound order management.
Yeah, that's a dense section, but so crucial.
So whether you are, clicking buy now on a website for a new pair of shoes, or you are prepping for a major supply chain meeting, understanding the difference between inbound and outbound logistics, it will completely change how you view your everyday purchases.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you peel back the curtain on any major corporation, you quickly realize that the line between their inbound flow of materials and their outbound flow to customers, that's where most of them either build their margins or they just completely bleed capital.
Right. Well, let's start right at that fault line then. So assuming we all know the fundamental difference, right, that inbound logistics manages the flow of materials coming into your facilities, and outbound manages the finished products heading out to the customer. The real question is how companies keep those two massive rivers from basically flooding each other.
Yeah, it's a huge balancing act.
And the sources point really heavily toward supplier relationship management, or SRM, as the sort of strategic bedrock there.
Right. And we really have to contextualize what SRM actually means in practice today. Because historically, procurement was kind of an adversarial blood sport.
Oh, for sure.
A buyer's whole job was to hammer their supplier for, every possible fraction of a cent.
Just squeeze them dry.
Exactly. But modern SRM recognizes this fundamental truth, which is that individual companies don't really compete anymore.
Wait, really? What do you mean?
That entire supply chains compete.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if your inbound materials are delayed because, say, you squeezed your supplier so hard they couldn't even afford to maintain their delivery trucks,
right? Your
outbound customer, they don't care whose fault it is. They don't care about your supplier issues. They're just going to go buy from your competitor.
Wow. Yeah. Which leads us to one of the most, I think, fascinating trust exercises in modern business, which is vendor-managed inventory, or VMI.
Oh, VMI is wild.
It really is.
Yeah.
On paper, VMI sounds borderline reckless because you are essentially giving your supplier the keys to your internal systems, right? You're letting them see your real-time consumption data and trusting them to just automatically restock your shelves without you ever even issuing a purchase order.
It demands a massive leap of faith.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this. Because VMI sounds like having a magical roommate who just knows you're out of milk and puts it in the fridge for you, completely bypassing the need for a grocery list.
That's actually a great way to put it. It's exactly like that. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the financial mechanics behind it are just brilliant.
Right.
Let's look at it from both sides. So for the buying organization, VMI strips out a tremendous amount of administrative bloat. You aren't paying purchasing agents to generate these routine, repetitive replenishment orders.
Makes sense.
But more importantly, you are often shifting the inventory carrying cost burden.
Oh, yeah.
In a lot of VMI agreements, you don't actually own the inventory sitting in your facility until you consume it.
Wait, really? So the supplier is eating all the carrying costs?
Yep.
Why on earth would a vendor agree to that deal?
Because the vendor gains the ultimate prize, which is demand visibility.
Ah.
Yeah. In a traditional setup, a supplier basically operates entirely in the dark until, bam, a massive purchase order suddenly lands on their desk.
Which just causes chaos on their production floor, I'm sure.
Complete chaos. But with VMI, they actually see your inventory dropping in real time. So they can smooth out their own manufacturing schedules, they can consolidate shipments, and they completely bypass the bullwhip effect.
Right, where those tiny fluctuations in retail demand turn into massive panics upstream.
Exactly. It's mutual survival, really. It drastically reduces lead times because the supplier sees demand automatically.
So VMI establishes this really strategic, almost telepathic alignment. But, strategy means absolutely nothing without tactical execution.
Right.
Eventually, a physical truck has to actually bump the dock. So how does a company control the day-to-day chaos of, thousands of inbound shipments?
Well, that is the domain of the routing guide. If SRM is the philosophy of the partnership, the routing guide is the absolute non-negotiable law for how you behave within it.
And looking at the sheer density of a standard routing guide in the text, it is incredibly strict.
Oh, very.
It forces this centralized carrier selection to stop local managers from engaging in what they call off-contract buying.
Which is a huge problem, yeah.
Which makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
If a warehouse manager in Dallas just hires a local buddy's trucking firm because it's convenient, they dilute the whole organization's national volume discounts.
Precisely. You lose those economies of scale instantly. But, the routing guide goes much deeper than just who you can hire to drive the truck. It dictates acceptable freight forwarders, really strict delivery windows, and even customs requirements like CT-PAT validation.
To ensure international shipments aren't flagged at the border.
Exactly.
But it also gets aggressively specific about the physical packaging. The source's detailed constraints right down to what the industry calls THI.
Ah, yes, THI.
Which is the number of cartons on a single tier or layer of a pallet and how many layers high that pallet can be built. But wait, a routing guide literally tells a supplier how many boxes can be on a single layer of a pallet. Isn't that micromanaging?
It sounds like it, yeah. It does shift the labor onto the vendor, but what's fascinating here is the mechanism of why buyers actually demand it.
Okay, tell me.
Think about the labor economics on a receiving dock. If a supplier just stacks a pallet however they want and it arrives at your distribution center, your warehouse staff has to perform what we call break bulk functions.
Which sounds tedious.
Very. They have to spend hours cutting shrink wrap, breaking down the pallet, and sorting mixed cartons into quantities that actually match what your outbound customers order.
And while they're doing all of that, the dock is just tied up and the next truck is waiting.
Exactly. The dock becomes this huge bottleneck. So the supplier agrees to the strict tie-high rules because if your receiving dock gets backed up, that supplier's trucks end up sitting in your yard for 6 hours, incurring detention fees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. By forcing the supplier to build the pallet in the exact carton quantities your final customer needs, the warehouse can just receive the pallet and move it straight to the outbound staging area. You completely eliminate that break bulk friction. It is a massive labor saver.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, speaking of internal warehouse movements, there is a very sharp, legally critical distinction made in the sources regarding how inventory moves before it ever even reaches a customer.
Right.
We really have to separate intracompany orders from transfer orders.
Yeah, and the distinction there really boils down to the borders of legal entities. So an intra-company order spelled with an A is purely geographic.
Okay.
It is moving goods between facilities owned by the exact same legal entity. So if you move excess winter coats from a distribution center in Chicago to one in Denver, you're just shifting assets around.
No tax event.
Right, no tax implications at all.
But a transfer order or an intercompany order with an E that crosses a legal boundary.
Right, and that triggers a whole cascade of compliance requirements. Let's say a global tech giant is moving $1 million worth of microchips from their manufacturing subsidiary in Taiwan to their assembly subsidiary in the U.S.
Huh.
Even though both subsidiaries are owned by the exact same parent corporation, they're distinct legal entities in the eyes of the law.
Right, so the Taiwanese tax authorities want their cut of the revenue, and the IRS wants to tax the imported value.
Exactly. Which means international transfer pricing rules apply. You can't just invoice the microchips for $1 to avoid taxes.
Yeah, the IRS probably wouldn't love that.
No, they wouldn't. You have to use an arm's-length market price. Furthermore, the system has to meticulously track the transportation, the handling, the insurance costs, because the liability formally transfers from one subsidiary to another. A mistake in a transfer order isn't just an inventory error, it's potential tax evasion.
Wow. Okay, so that brings us back to the operational reality on the dock, right? We've got the routing guide dictating the physical packaging. We have the legal framework for the transfer. But how does the receiving dock actually prepare for the physical reality of the truck pulling up?
They do that through the ASN, the Advanced Shipping Notice.
The ASN. It operates almost like a digital tripwire.
Yes.
It's sent via EDI, which is electronic data interchange, before the trunk even leaves the supplier. But it's not just an ETA, right? It's this dense data packet detailing exact items, quantities, tracking info, barcode structures.
Calling it a digital tripwire is a great way to visualize it, honestly.
Right.
Because when that data hits the buyer's system, it triggers an entire automated reallocation of resources. Well, if the ASN tells the warehouse management system that an inbound truck contains really heavy, oversized pallets, the system dynamically reserves the heavy-duty forklifts and routes them to, say, dock door 4 for a 2:00 p.m. arrival.
Oh, that's smart.
Right. Or if the ASN indicates that critical back-ordered parts are on board, the system flags those pallets for immediate cross-docking, so they bypass storage entirely and go straight to an outbound truck.
It's just incredible optimization. And ASN is like a guest texting you exactly what side dish they're bringing to a dinner party and their exact ETA, so you know exactly how much oven space you'll need when they arrive.
Exactly. It prevents the bottleneck. And ASNs aren't just for warehouse optimization either. For international inbound logistics, they are literally a matter of national security.
Yes, the sources talk about the U.S. 10+2 rule.
Right, the importer security filing.
Under this rule, importers have to provide customs with specific ASN details 24 hours before the cargo is even loaded onto a vessel at the foreign port.
Right. And just think about the physical logistics of a modern cargo vessel. I mean, some of these ships carry 20,000 standard containers.
It's hard to even picture that.
It is. If U.S. Customs waits until the ship arrives in Los Angeles to review the paperwork, and they happen to find a highly suspicious container buried under, a mountain of steel.
Good luck getting it out.
Exactly. It's a logistical nightmare to extract it. By demanding the data 24 hours before loading in Shanghai or Rotterdam, customs algorithms can profile the risk, and if something flags, they prevent the container from ever being hoisted onto the ship in the first place.
The scale of that visibility is just staggering. And it's evolving, too. The text points to solutions like the Global Shipping Business Network, or GSBN, which uses blockchain architecture to give buyers this crazy multi-attribute tracking.
Yeah, that technology is a game changer.
Because a retailer isn't just tracking a container of shoes anymore, right? They're tracking the exact size, the color, the style breakdowns, while the ship is still in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
And that granularity allows supply chain managers to actually redirect inventory in transit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Say a specific container holds heavy winter boots and a freak blizzard hits the Northeast. You can prearrange for that specific container to be prioritized and put on an express train to New York the second it hits the port, rather than letting it just sit in a general sorting yard.
Okay, so the materials have traversed the globe, they've cleared customs, bypassed the warehouse bottlenecks, and the factory has actually built the final product. Now we pivot to the outbound execution.
The fun part.
Right. This is the moment a customer, like you listening right now, finally clicks that Buy Now button. So let's break down the actual mechanics of the outbound order cycle.
Sure. So it initiates this rapid 4-stage sequence. Stage 1 is order transmittal. This is the literal transfer of the order info. In e-commerce, it's an API call from a website. In B2B, it might be an automated EDI transmission or a barcode scan.
Okay. And then stage 2 is order processing. And here's where it gets really interesting to me. I mean, the system checks credit, obviously, builds loads, triages priority. But the way it checks inventory, I get available to promise. That's just checking the warehouse shelf, right?
Right. Simple math. The system looks at the warehouse, sees 10 laptops on the shelf, sees 5 existing orders, and promises you one of the remaining 5.
But the text mentions capable to promise. Are systems really calculating if they have the raw materials and machine capacity to build a brand new order on the fly?
They absolutely are. And this raises an important question about how we manage capacity. Because capable to promise, or CTP, is where computing power truly shines. It doesn't just look at what's on the shelf. It is calculating if the organization can build a net new product from scratch to satisfy your specific order.
That is wild.
It simultaneously queries the raw materials inventory, checks the inbound ASNs for materials that are currently in transit, analyzes the factory's machine maintenance schedules, and evaluates available labor capacity.
So it's essentially running a full, real-time simulation of the entire factory, just to lock in a delivery date for a product that doesn't even physically exist yet.
Yes. And it has to do this to prevent what we call the phantom order problem.
Phantom orders.
Yeah, if you just accept orders without checking your actual capacity, you end up overpromising, which completely destroys customer trust. CTP dynamically blocks out machine time the very second your order is accepted, ensuring the promise they make to you is mathematically sound.
Wow. Okay, so that brings us to stage 3, order, picking, and packing. The warehouse management system, or WMS, takes over, generates a schedule.
Right. And a good WMS treats warehouse labor like a routing algorithm. It sequences the pick paths, the break bulk functions we talked about earlier. So a worker isn't just walking back and forth across a 1,000,000-square-foot facility.
Because travel time is just pure waste.
Exactly. Once the items are picked, they move to packing, which introduces a really critical physical and legal requirement, which is dunnage.
Dunnage being the bracing material, right? Like the airbags, the foam, the specialized blocking they use to lock the cargo in place inside the trailer.
Yeah.
But why is that legally critical?
Because of stage 4, ordered delivery, specifically the proof of delivery, or POD. When that truck arrives at the customer, the POD isn't just a signature, it is the formal legal transfer of liability.
Ah, I see.
So if the load shifts during transit because the warehouse skimped on the dunnage and the product arrives crushed, the customer will note that damage on the POD.
And that instantly triggers a whole cascade of freight claims, delays invoicing, and damages the supplier scorecard, I'd imagine.
Exactly, which perfectly sets up a sort of counterintuitive point in the source material regarding order cycle time variability.
Right. When organizations analyze this whole cycle, they often map out their current as-is state versus a proposed to-be state. And sometimes they intentionally implement a process that makes their average delivery time slightly longer.
It seems totally backwards, right?
Wow.
Until you look at how B2B buyers actually manage risk. Let's say your current order cycle averages 10 days, but because your internal process is chaotic, sometimes it takes 4 days, and sometimes it takes 25 days.
That massive variance sounds like a nightmare.
It is.
Because the buyer then has to hold 25 days worth of safety stock just in case you hit the worst case scenario.
Exactly. Holding that safety stock ties up massive amounts of capital for them. Now, if you overhaul your order cycle and it now averages 12 days, but it is surgically precise, meaning it always arrives between 11 and 13 days, the variance shrinks to almost nothing.
So the buyer will gladly accept a slightly longer average lead time in exchange for absolute reliability.
Yes, because reliability allows them to slash their safety stock. Predictability is always, always cheaper than erratic speed.
To ensure that predictability, companies have to constantly grade their partners, so they use supplier scorecards. And it isn't just a basic report card. It tracks the specific frictions we've been talking about.
Right, like are they hitting their delivery windows? What's their price index relative to the market? Are there freight damages found at receipt?
And crucially, are they transmitting clean ASNs? Because as we established, a missing ASN totally blinds the receiving dock.
The scorecard essentially quantifies trust. It dictates who gets more volume next quarter and who gets phased out.
So once you have the right partners and the internal order cycle is optimized, you still have to choose the absolute best network model to reach the final customer.
Is it physical architecture?
Exactly. The sources lay out a spectrum of distribution strategies. Let's examine a few of them, starting with integrated fulfillment.
Well, integrated fulfillment is a massive lever for capital efficiency. Instead of building a dedicated, highly automated facility exclusively for e-commerce and then a totally separate bulk facility for retail replenishment, you just merge them.
You use the exact same distribution center.
Right, and often the same workforce, too. You build full pallets for retail stores while simultaneously picking individual units to put in cardboard boxes for internet shoppers.
Which brings us to the dropship model, which shifts the physical burden entirely.
Oh, dropshipping is brilliant for a retailer's cash flow. The retailer takes the customer's order and collects the payment, right? They might have a single floor model in a showroom, but they hold zero backroom inventory.
So they transmit the order to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer ships the unit directly to the end consumer.
Exactly. It's highly effective for bulky, high-value, or custom-configured items where holding speculative inventory is just way too risky.
Now, the final model mentioned is direct store delivery, or DSD. And this one is fascinating because it seems to bypass the traditional supply chain entirely. With DSD, a vendor, let's use commercial bakery as an example, they drive their own truck to the local grocery store, walk in, and stock the bread aisle themselves.
Yep.
They completely skip the grocery chain's massive centralized distribution centers. So with DSD, the chip or bread vendor just walks into the local grocery store and stocks the shelves themselves. Why does the retailer give up that control?
Because DSD is essentially vendor-managed inventory executed at the physical retail shelf level.
Oh.
Right. For the grocery store, they get free merchandising labor and zero warehouse holding costs. But for the bakery, it is an absolute necessity, and it's governed by the physics of spoilage.
Because it's perishable.
Exactly. Bread and snack chips are highly perishable. Every single day, a loaf of bread sits in a grocer's massive central distribution center waiting to be sorted is a day of shelf life permanently destroyed.
Right. No one can buy it in the warehouse.
Exactly. By delivering directly to the store, bypassing the retail DC, the manufacturer slashes the total network inventory time. They ensure the product is fresh when the consumer buys it.
So what does this all mean for you? Next time you are grabbing a bag of chips or tracking an online parcel, you'll see the invisible web. You aren't just seeing a transaction anymore. You are witnessing the culmination of global transfer pricing agreements, highly negotiated tie-high pallet structures, blockchain-verified ASNs, and capable to promise algorithms locking in factory time just for you.
It really is a staggering achievement of human coordination.
It is.
But, I think there is a really profound thread running through all these sources that we need to acknowledge as we wrap up.
Oh, huh?
Well, we've dissected EDI, ASNs, vendor-managed inventory, automated capable-to-promise systems. The ultimate goal of every single one of these technologies is to remove human intervention and human error from the order cycle.
Right. The system is designed to basically govern itself.
So let's follow that logic to its natural conclusion. If the inbound inventory monitors its own depletion, automatically triggers an order to a supplier system, which then dynamically reallocates machine capacity, calculates the dunnage, books the carrier, and updates the blockchain.
Yeah.
What happens when AI eventually removes the human buyer and the human seller entirely from the B2B order cycle?
Oh, wow. That is a staggering thought.
Right. When a procurement algorithm at one company is autonomously negotiating price and capacity with a sales algorithm at another company, what does customer service even look like? Does the concept of a business relationship even survive when machines are just trading data packets?
When the button clicks itself, who is actually the customer? That fundamentally rewrites the entire concept of commerce. I mean, right now, behind that cardboard box on your porch, there is still an intricate, deeply human choreography trying to tame the chaos. But perhaps we are just building the scaffolding for machines to take over the dance.
Definitely something to ponder the next time you get a delivery notification on your phone.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for unpacking this invisible world with me today. It's been incredible.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime.